At the department banquet, my boss raised his wine glass and declared, "Let's toast to our little mascot here. Good at smiling, terrible at everything else." Everyone laughed while he added, "Maybe next year, she'll learn to spell her own name." I sat there smiling through tears, already knowing I had secretly accepted an offer from our biggest competitor. And the look on his face when half the clients followed me out the door was something I'll never forget. I didn't grow up with connections. My parents ran a small dry cleaning shop in South St. Louis. I paid my own way through community college, then transferred to a local university. I was always good with people, and I like solving problems, so when I landed a job at West Park Creative, I thought it was the break I needed. The office was in one of those renovated warehouse buildings near Lafayette Square. Exposed brick, glass conference rooms, cold brew on tap. All that trendy stuff that made you feel like the company cared about culture. But behind all that gloss, it was just another boys' club. A lot of smiling to your face and smirking behind your back. I was hired as an account coordinator, entry level, but they said there was room to grow. I believed them. I came in early, stayed late, learned how to pitch, how to read a room, how to fight for clients. I took the shittiest accounts, the ones no one else wanted, and I turned them around. I didn't do it by being flashy. I listened. I took time to know the client's business. I followed up when others wouldn't. But every time we had department meetings or quarterly reviews or hell, even just lunch breaks, David Marner found a way to belittle me. He was my direct boss. Director of strategy. 48, maybe 50. Slick hair, always wore navy suits. And he loved to hear himself talk. The kind of guy who'd tell you your skirt was distracting, but then ask you to smile more. He never got his hands dirty. Just took credit. I remember one Monday, I had pitched a rebrand to a pediatric dental chain. It wasn't part of my assigned work. I just noticed their campaign materials were outdated. And I stayed up over the weekend putting together a mock-up. When I brought it to the meeting, David waved it off. "Not the time," he said. 2 days later, he pitched the exact same concept to leadership and called it his instinctive brilliance. I kept quiet. I kept smiling. I thought maybe that's how things worked. You earn your stripes. You wait your turn. But the insults started piling up. Great energy. Zero follow-through. Smile all you want, but smiling doesn't get you clients. Cute effort, but let's leave the real strategy to the grown-ups. It became a running joke in the department, me being the mascot. The one who brought cookies to meetings, remembered birthdays, always had a positive attitude. It's funny how people will mock kindness when it threatens their ego. I started to realize no matter how good I was, I'd never be seen for it at West Park. David made sure of that. The banquet was the final straw. Every year, they hosted a big dinner for the department. We'd rent out a ballroom, hand out silly awards, drink way too much wine. That year, I was actually excited. I had landed 2 major clients that quarter. Real revenue. Thought maybe, just maybe, I'd finally get a little recognition. The night started fine. I wore a navy dress, curled my hair, even practiced what I'd say if I was asked to speak. People mingled, laughed, and I remember thinking, this might be the night it turns around. Then David got up to make his speech. He started with jokes, as always. Made fun of traffic, of our office Keurig machine, of an intern who wore a bow tie. Everyone laughed. Then his eyes locked on me. "And of course," he said, raising his wine glass, "let's not forget our little mascot." People chuckled. "Good at smiling," he added. "Terrible at everything else." A wave of laughter hit the table. I sat there frozen, my face stretched into a forced smile. My chest was tight. My fingers dug into the tablecloth under the table, just to stop them from shaking. He wasn't done. "Maybe next year," he said, grinning. "She'll learn to spell her own name on a report." More laughter. The VP of accounts actually spit wine out her nose. That's how hard she laughed. I looked around the room and no one said a thing. Not one person defended me. Not one glance of sympathy. Just faces turned away when I looked for eye contact. I smiled through it. I even laughed. Because I couldn't afford to break down. But what they didn't know was this. I'd already accepted a job offer from Benchmark Strategies. And I wasn't going alone. Rewind a few weeks. A friend from college, now a senior strategist at Benchmark, reached out. Said he'd been hearing things. Clients talking. Noticing that I was the one behind the turnaround on certain campaigns. Said their team was growing. And they wanted someone who actually understood relationship marketing, not just buzzwords. I met the Benchmark partners over lunch. It was different from the start. They asked real questions. They listened. And when I told them about my frustrations at West Park, they didn't brush it off. They said, "Come here. We'll give you the space, the title, the trust." I said yes. I signed my offer letter the Monday before the banquet. So while David stood there mocking me in front of 40 people, I already knew I was leaving. And not just leaving. I was about to bleed that company from the inside out. Because I had relationships. I didn't just manage accounts. I built them. One client texted me when their son broke his arm. Another asked me to speak at their small business event. I earned trust. Real trust. So when I gave my 2 weeks notice the following Wednesday, David was caught off guard. He called me into his office. "Where are you going?" he asked, leaning back in his chair like this was some casual chat. "Benchmark," I said. "Calm. Even." His eyes narrowed. "Huh. Good luck over there. You'll find it's not as easy as you think." I just nodded. What I didn't say was, 3 of your top clients have already reached out to me. They're waiting for my official start date. You're not just losing me. You're losing everything I built. I left West Park on a Thursday. There was no goodbye party. No card passed around the office. David didn't even come out of his office when I packed my things. I walked out with 1 box and a folder full of client contact info. Not the confidential stuff, just what I'd built through my own outreach and relationships. Lunch notes. Birthday reminders. Preferences. The kind of thing you only get by caring. The elevator doors closed, and I stood there alone. Silent. I thought maybe I'd feel relief or victory. But all I felt was fire in my chest. This wasn't over. My first day at Benchmark Strategies was everything I hoped for. Smaller team, but tighter. Everyone there had something to prove, and no one acted like they were owed anything. They put me on 2 new accounts the first week and gave me free rein on strategy. But the real shift came fast. The Monday after I left West Park, I got an email from Clearland Dental, a major client I brought in the year before. "Heard you made a move. We'd love to grab coffee if you're open to it." I met the COO at a small cafe 2 blocks from their main office. She got right to the point. "We've been unhappy with how West Park's handled things lately. The last campaign felt recycled. You weren't behind that, were you?" I shook my head. She leaned forward. "Are you taking clients?" I didn't even have to pitch. She signed with us the following week. 2 days later, another message came in. This time from Horizon Law Group, a firm that West Park had held for nearly a decade. Same story. "We miss your attention to detail. Things feel cold over there since you left. Are you available for a meeting?" By the end of the month, I'd personally helped transition 5 clients away from West Park. All of them were clients I brought in, grown, or revived. They weren't just leaving a company. They were following a person. Me. David must have figured it out when the cancellation emails started coming in. I know this because an old coworker, Jenna, still talked to me on the side. She sent me a message one night. "David's in full meltdown mode. He accused the whole team of being too weak to hold loyalty. He made a junior designer cry in front of everyone." I smiled when I read that. But it didn't stop there. Apparently, a junior copywriter named Leah had gone to HR. She claimed David made repeated sexist remarks and said she had emails to prove it. I believed her immediately. She wasn't the first. I'd seen David make jokes at other women's expense. About their outfits. About how they should learn from the receptionist how to smile. I just hadn't spoken up before. I regret that now. The HR department tried to keep things quiet, but the story started spreading. People were whispering in the kitchen. "Did you hear what he said to Leah?" Apparently she saved the Slack messages. They're talking legal action. And through it all, David kept pretending everything was fine. Except now he was bleeding clients, losing control, and the office morale was rotting. 3 months after I left, I got a text from Jenna. "You're not going to believe this. They just canceled the summer client retreat. Budget got slashed after losing Horizon and Ridge Pharmacy. David looks like he aged 10 years. I laughed. I couldn't help it. That retreat was David's pride and joy. He used it to schmooze, drink, and act like he was a celebrity. Losing that must have burned him bad. But I wasn't done. At Benchmark, my work kept getting stronger. Clients were happy. We were growing fast. And then the biggest break came. A regional grocery chain with over 100 locations reached out. They had been with Westpark for 8 years. I hadn't worked with them directly, but one of their marketing directors had been on the same nonprofit board as me. She heard I switched firms. We had lunch. She told me they felt like Westpark was asleep at the wheel. The last holiday campaign was a near copy of the one 2 years before. She said they'd been thinking about moving, but didn't want the hassle. I showed her what we could do. Fresh concepts, detailed rollout, better service. She brought it to her board. They voted. They left Westpark. And that's when things exploded. David called me directly. I didn't recognize the number at first. When I picked up, his voice was calm but tight. "Hope you're proud of yourself," he said. I waited. "You couldn't just move on. You had to gut us from the inside. Real professional." I said nothing. He went on. "You're going to find out real quick that burning bridges makes you unemployable." I smiled. "Actually, David," I said, "what I found is that treating people like dirt is what really comes back to bite you." Then I hung up. No yelling. No threats. Just a clean final click. But it wasn't final. Because Leah filed her formal complaint. And she named names. And other women stepped up. Clients started asking Benchmark about what was going on. More wanted to leave Westpark. And one of the partners at Westpark, a guy named Mitchell, resigned suddenly. Rumors said he'd been protecting David for years. I started to wonder if this wasn't just professional fallout, but a full collapse coming. About a week after David's angry phone call, something strange happened. I got a LinkedIn message from a name I hadn't heard in years, Rachel Connors. Back when I was still at Westpark, Rachel had been the director of client services. She was smart, no nonsense, and one of the few people in the office who never treated me like a joke. She left suddenly about a year before I did. No explanation. Just gone. Her message said, "Heard you're behind the exodus. Good. I've been waiting for someone to make that place bleed." I messaged back and asked what really happened. Why she left so quickly. She offered to meet. We met at a small bar near Tower Grove. I didn't know what to expect, but when she sat down, she wasted no time. Rachel looked me in the eye and said, "David cost me my job." Apparently, she'd gone to HR with complaints about how he talked to women in the office. They did nothing. Instead, they made her redundant a month later, during what they called a budget restructure. She showed me emails, screenshots, memos with her name scrubbed out of project credits, just like he used to do with mine. This went back years. I couldn't touch him, she said. He was too close with the board. But now, the board's getting spooked. That same week, another domino fell. A news article dropped in the St. Louis Business Journal. The headline read, "Westpark Creative under internal review following multiple workplace complaints." It wasn't front-page news. But in the local business world, it hit hard. The article quoted anonymous former employees, describing a toxic workplace, unreported harassment, and financial mismanagement. One line jumped out at me. "Sources say key clients have left in recent months, and internal morale is at an all-time low." I hadn't talked to the reporter. Neither had Rachel, at least not then. So someone else was talking. David tried to do damage control. He posted a smug little note on LinkedIn that said, "Proud to be part of a strong, resilient team that rises above noise." He even had the nerve to tag Westpark staff in it, like some desperate show of unity. But the comments section didn't hold back. One former employee commented, "Rising above noise is easier when you're not the one who created it." Another wrote, "How's that mascot doing now?" I didn't reply. I didn't need to. And then the audit hit. Rachel had mentioned that David was sloppy with budgets, padding invoices, double billing small clients, reassigning hours across unrelated projects to cover losses. Now someone inside had flagged it. An outside firm was brought in to audit financials. I got another message from Jenna. It's getting ugly. They found irregular billing on over a dozen accounts. Legal's involved. David's barely showing up anymore. By this point, I was 6 months into my new job. Benchmark had given me a small team, and I was mentoring 2 junior account managers. I was finally in the role I'd worked years to earn. But when I saw what was happening at West Park, I knew this wasn't just karma. This was structural collapse. I thought that would be the end of it. But then I got an email I didn't expect. From someone I never thought I'd hear from. One of the West Park board members. His name was Aaron Beasley, an older guy, usually silent during leadership calls. He asked to speak privately. We set up a call. He got on and said something I'll never forget. I think we made a mistake backing David for so long. And I think we lost a lot of good people because of it, including you. I said nothing at first. I didn't trust it. He went on. Would you consider coming back, at a leadership level, to help fix what's broken? I almost laughed. He was serious. Said they were restructuring. And they needed someone who actually knew how to lead, how to build client trust, and how to heal internal damage. Someone with a clean reputation. I told him the truth. I already have everything I wanted, and your company doesn't deserve my help. He tried to recover, said they could offer equity, a title, whatever I wanted. I said no, because no amount of money was going to fix what that place tried to take from me. But I wasn't done. Because now, I had leverage. And a plan. After that call with Aaron Beasley, the West Park board member, I didn't tell anyone at Benchmark about it. Not yet. I needed to think. I didn't want to go back. I had no plans to help them rebuild anything. But I also knew one thing about people like Aaron and David. They cared more about appearances than people. They didn't want to make things right. They wanted to look like they were making things right. That gave me an idea. See, I still had proof. Old emails where David took credit for my work. Notes from internal meetings where I was blamed for missed deadlines that weren't mine. Slack screenshots Jenna had sent me showing David calling me dead weight to another manager. I never used them. I didn't need to, not for me. But I realized maybe I could use them. For someone else. I met up with Leah, the junior copywriter who had filed that formal complaint. She looked tired. Worn down. Said the legal team at West Park was dragging things out, stalling with fake apologies and mediation offers. HR had tried to spin it like misunderstandings, like she just didn't know how to take a joke. She told me, I just want someone to say what he did was wrong. So I showed her what I had. I gave her the screenshots, emails, timelines. I even wrote a sworn statement about what I'd seen and heard over the years. I didn't want money. I just wanted her to have backup. Leah took it straight to her lawyer. And 2 weeks later, she filed a public lawsuit. The headlines hit harder this time. Former employee sues West Park Creative. Alleges pattern of gender-based harassment and retaliation. Documents reveal misconduct by former executive David Marner. Now the story wasn't just whispers or rumors. It was real. In the open. Clients started pulling out in droves. Some of them even canceling contracts early, just to avoid being tied to the mess. Within days, West Park's homepage quietly went offline. A week later, David deleted his LinkedIn account. And then came the part one didn't expect. An article ran in the Riverfront Times, an in-depth piece that featured quotes from several women, past and present employees at West Park, who talked about the toxic culture. Not just harassment, but also credit stealing, mental health breakdowns, and people getting iced out when they spoke up. At the very bottom of the article, buried in the last few paragraphs, was this line. Attempts were made to recruit a former employee who declined to return, citing a desire to build culture elsewhere. That former employee now leads strategy at Benchmark, where multiple ex-West Park clients now reside. That was me. No name, but anyone in the industry knew. My inbox exploded. Recruiters. Reporters. Even one of the board members from Horizon Law Group sent me a note saying, proud of you for doing what none of us had the guts to do. But it wasn't just David who paid. West Park collapsed. They lost 6 of their 10 largest accounts. Their credit line dried up. Their office lease wasn't renewed. Employees were laid off in waves. Jenna told me she barely made it out with severance. Eventually, they rebranded under a new name, some generic thing like WP Solutions. But everyone in town knew who they really were. As for David, last I heard, he moved to a small town outside of Springfield and started doing freelance copywriting for a local car dealership. I found his sad little website once. No photo, just a black and white logo. His testimonials were clearly fake. He hasn't worked for an agency since. He never apologized, never reached out. But the silence was better. It meant he knew. Now here's the part that might surprise you. After everything, I still got hit with some of the fallout. A few people in the industry whispered that I was too aggressive or cutthroat for how I left. Said I should have handled things internally. One local exec even pulled me aside at a conference and said, "You didn't have to go nuclear." And I'll admit it, I had moments where I questioned myself. Was I too angry? Was I petty? But then I'd look at Leah, at Rachel, at the other women who finally started getting interviews again, getting promoted, getting seen. I realized this wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about correction. So yeah, maybe I was the match that lit the fuse. But that building was already full of gas. I run my own team at Benchmark now. We've doubled in size since I joined. We've won regional awards. But more important than any of that, the people who work for me know they're safe. We do exit interviews. We have mental health days. No more mascots. No more pretending. Every once in a while, when I walk past my office door, I look at the plaque with my name on it. And I remember the night I smiled through tears while a room full of people laughed at me. They don't laugh now. They're gone. And I'm still here,